I sat across from my wife, Lisa, in our favorite Italian restaurant. The soft flicker of candlelight danced across her face, highlighting the sharp cheekbones I once admired. But tonight, something felt off. Her smile was forced, her eyes darting around like she was rehearsing a speech in her head. We'd been married for 9 years. Not perfect years, but I believed we were solid. I worked hard as a project manager, climbing the ranks to provide for us. Lisa had once been an elementary school teacher, but decided to leave her job a few years ago to focus on herself. I never minded. I loved her enough to support her dreams, even when those dreams seemed ever-changing. The waiter came by with our entrees. My lasagna smelled heavenly, but Lisa barely glanced at her plate of chicken piccata. Instead, she cleared her throat. "Daniel," she said, voice calm but cold, "I'm leaving you." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Her eyes met mine, unblinking. "What?" I asked, not sure if I'd heard correctly. "I've filed for divorce." "It's done," she said, her tone sharp and unapologetic. "I wanted to tell you here in public so there wouldn't be any drama." The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying candle. My appetite vanished. "Why?" I asked, though a sick feeling in my gut already suspected the answer. Lisa sighed, almost annoyed. "Because I'm tired, Daniel. Tired of this boring life, of you working late hours and coming home exhausted. I'm tired of pretending I'm happy. I deserve more." Deserve more? I thought bitterly. I'd given her everything: comfort, security, freedom. Then her lips curled into a smirk. "Besides, I've met someone else. Someone who knows how to enjoy life. I'm done being the loyal housewife while you bury yourself in spreadsheets." Ah, there it was. The real reason. I should have been devastated, angry. But instead, I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Lisa's smirk faltered. "What the hell are you smiling about?" I glanced at my watch. "Any moment now." "You'll see," I said, keeping my voice steady. Lisa crossed her arms, clearly irritated. "You're pathetic, Daniel. This is why I'm leaving. You can't even take something serious without playing games." I said nothing, just watched the entrance. And right on cue, the restaurant door swung open. In walked a man in a sharp navy suit, tall, confident, with a look of determination on his face. Lisa's face drained of color the moment she saw him. "Mark," she whispered. "Mark, my divorce attorney. And Lisa's lover." Her secret affair wasn't so secret after all. Mark's eyes scanned the room until they landed on us. He walked over, face unreadable. Lisa's gaze darted between him and me, panic replacing her earlier smugness. "Daniel." Mark greeted me first, extending a hand. I shook it firmly, never breaking eye contact with my wife. Lisa's voice trembled. What is he doing here?" I smiled again, this time wider. "Oh, didn't Mark tell you? He's not just your lover, Lisa. He's also my lawyer. Has been for months." The color drained from her face entirely. "You see," I continued, "I found out about you 2 months ago. The late-night girls' trips, the secretive texts, the sudden interest in going to the gym. It didn't take much to connect the dots." Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Mark stood there silently, his jaw tightening. "So," I said, picking up my fork and taking a bite of lasagna, "while you were busy planning your escape with Mark here, I was busy planning mine. Only difference is, mine leaves you with nothing." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Mark finally spoke, voice low and strained. "Lisa, I didn't know Daniel was your husband when you first approached me. By the time I realized, it was too late. He hired me to handle the divorce in his favor." Lisa's chair scraped against the floor as she shot up. "You son of a bitch," she hissed, glaring at Mark. "You said we'd start fresh. That we'd be set." I leaned back, enjoying the show. Set? Hardly. The house? In my name. The joint accounts? I drained my half weeks ago. Your freedom comes with a nice pile of debt, sweetheart. Her hands trembled as she pointed at Mark. You knew about this? You let me think. Mark cut her off, voice sharp. I'm a lawyer, Lisa. My job is to protect my client. And Daniel paid better than pillow talk ever could. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No pity, no regret. Just satisfaction. Lisa stumbled back, shaking her head. This isn't happening. Oh, it is, I said, standing and tossing a few bills on the table for the meal. I'll send the finalized papers to your new Freedom Pad. Hope you enjoy the rent. I hear Mark's not much for long-term commitment. Mark gave me a curt nod and turned to leave without another glance at Lisa. She stood there, frozen, as her perfect little fantasy crumbled around her. I walked past her, pausing just long enough to whisper, "Next time you plan to betray someone, make sure they're not smarter than you." And with that, I walked out into the night, feeling lighter than I had in years. I drove home in silence, the weight of the evening slowly unraveling in my mind. The look on Lisa's face when she saw Mark had been priceless. For months, I'd kept my composure, pretending to be the oblivious husband while quietly assembling my escape plan. Now that the first phase was complete, the real work began. When I first discovered Lisa's affair, it wasn't because of some dramatic revelation. It was a random Tuesday night. She'd left her laptop open on the couch while she took a shower. A notification popped up, a message from M. Blueheart. My heart sank. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked. Asterisk, can't wait until it's just us. He's such a clueless bore. Love you, babe. Asterisk. My stomach twisted, but I didn't confront her. Instead, I took screenshots, forwarded them to myself, and sat there numb. 9 years of marriage, reduced to heart emojis and cheap insults behind my back. But the numbness didn't last long. It morphed into something sharper. Not just betrayal. Resolve. By the next morning, I had a plan. First, I called my financial advisor, ensuring all our joint accounts were reviewed. I couldn't clear them entirely, Lisa would notice. But I discreetly moved my direct deposits into a private account under my name only. The mortgage? Solely under my name, thanks to a refinancing deal I'd done last year. Our cars? Both paid off, but hers was technically under my credit. Next, I hired a private investigator. It felt extreme, but I wanted proof, not just texts. Within a week, I had photos of Lisa and Mark leaving a hotel downtown, hand in hand. A few days later, more pictures, coffee dates, lunch meetups, even a quick kiss in the parking lot of her yoga studio. That's when I approached Mark. I'll never forget the look on his face when I walked into his office for a consultation. He didn't recognize me at first. I sat across from him, placed the photos on his desk, and smiled. I hear you're a damn good divorce attorney, I said. Think you can help me screw over my cheating wife? He blinked, processing the situation. When his gaze dropped to the pictures, his face paled. I didn't know she was married to you, he stammered. Doesn't matter, I said calmly. You can either represent me and make sure this ends entirely in my favor, or I'll make sure the State Bar hears all about your little conflict of interest. Mark swallowed hard, then nodded.
Fine.
I'm in. From there, everything fell into place. Mark filed the divorce paperwork quietly, ensuring I retained the house, my retirement accounts, and any valuable assets. Lisa would walk away with nothing but her personal belongings and the credit card bills she'd so generously racked up in my name. Now, as I pulled into the driveway of my house, I finally let out a long breath. The hardest part was over, or so I thought. The next morning, Lisa came home in a storm. I was sipping coffee at the kitchen counter when the front door burst open. Lisa stomped in, her hair disheveled and eyes wild. You bastard, she shrieked, throwing a crumpled document at me. I calmly picked it up. The official divorce filing. Morning, Lisa, I said, sipping my coffee. Sleep well. Her face twisted with rage. You set me up. You knew all along, and you just sat there, pretending everything was fine. I shrugged. Well, you seemed so happy with your someone better. I didn't want to ruin the fantasy. Her hands clenched into fists. You can't do this to me. I gave you the best years of my life. I chuckled bitterly. You mean the years you spent lying, cheating, and spending my money while laughing behind my back? Yeah, real generous of you. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't fall for the act. I'd seen those crocodile tears too many times before. You're heartless, she spat. No, I said, setting my mug down. I'm just done being your fool. She stood there, chest heaving, realization dawning on her face. She had nothing left. No house, no easy settlement, and if Mark had any self-preservation instincts, no boyfriend either. Where am I supposed to go? She muttered, more to herself than to me. I nodded toward the suitcase sitting by the door. I packed your things. The lease on that fancy downtown apartment you were eyeing? It's under your name now. Enjoy paying the rent. Her mouth opened in shock. You signed that lease? Yep. Figured you'd need a head start in your new life. Don't say I never gave you anything. Lisa stood there for a long moment, defeated. Finally, she grabbed the suitcase and stumbled out the door, slamming it behind her. I watched through the window as she stood on the sidewalk, looking around like a lost child. Mark didn't show up. No Prince Charming to whisk her away. Just Lisa. Alone. I should have felt guilty. But all I felt was peace. The only thing left to do was sign the final papers and reclaim my life. A life free from lies, betrayal, and the woman who thought she could walk all over me. Little did I know, Lisa wasn't done causing chaos just yet. The days following Lisa's dramatic exit were surprisingly quiet. I settled into a new routine. Work, gym, evenings with a good book, or catching up with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. It was strange, but freeing, like shedding a heavy coat after a long winter. Mark, true to his word, fast-tracked the divorce. He clearly wanted to put the whole mess behind him, especially after I hinted that any delays might result in a formal complaint to the Bar Association. Within a week, the final paperwork was ready for signatures. But Lisa? She was uncharacteristically silent. I assumed she'd finally accepted defeat. After all, her credit cards were frozen. Her downtown apartment lease was officially under her name. No more freeloading off my accounts. And Mark had cut ties with her once he realized there was nothing more to gain. But if marriage had taught me anything, it was this. Lisa never lost quietly. The first sign of trouble came one evening when I returned home from work. My front door was ajar. Heart pounding, I stepped inside. The living room was a disaster. Cushions slashed, picture frame shattered, drawers overturned. It wasn't just a break-in, it was personal. Lisa, I muttered, rage bubbling up. In the middle of the mess sat an envelope. My name was scrawled across the front in her familiar, looping handwriting. I picked it up, tearing it open with shaking hands. Asterisk, if you think you've won, think again. You took everything from me, so I'll return the favor. Enjoy the ruins of your perfect little life. Lisa, asterisk. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to breathe. The cops came quickly, took statements, and filed a report. But I knew how this worked. Lisa hadn't technically stolen anything, just destroyed property we'd once shared. A domestic dispute, nothing more. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. While the officers were still there, I pulled out my phone and accessed the hidden camera feed I'd set up after Lisa left. Tiny, motion-activated cameras tucked into the corners of the living room and kitchen. Not exactly legal for marital spaces without consent, but since I owned the house solely now, it was fair game. The footage showed Lisa breaking in with her spare key, tearing through the house in a blind fury. At one point, she held up a framed photo of us from happier days and screamed, asterisk, you ruined my life, Daniel, asterisk, before smashing it against the wall. The officers' faces hardened as they watched the footage. She's crossed the line into vandalism and harassment, one said, jotting notes. We can issue a restraining order. Wanna press charges? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Within 24 hours, Lisa was served with both the restraining order and the official notice of criminal charges for property damage. Her smug confidence evaporated when she realized this wasn't just another argument she could manipulate her way out of. But Lisa wasn't just vindictive. She was cunning. The next curveball came through my HR department at work. Daniel, my manager said, voice tight with discomfort. We received an anonymous complaint alleging financial misconduct. The claims are serious. I blinked.
What?
That's insane. What misconduct? Misuse of company funds, falsifying project reports. We know your track record, so it sounded off, but corporate has to investigate. It's protocol. Lisa. Of course. Thankfully, my digital footprint was spotless. Every expense report, project update, and client communication was documented and verifiable. It took a week of intense scrutiny, but the investigation cleared me entirely. HR closed the case with an apology. Seems like someone was trying to sabotage you, my manager admitted. We're flagging it as harassment and adding security to your employee file. Lisa's desperation was spiraling. She was grasping at anything to hurt me, but each attempt only solidified her downfall. That's when I decided to end this once and for all. I reached out to Mark, who, ironically, was now more helpful than ever. He still had access to Lisa's recent communications through the divorce proceedings. He couldn't legally spy on her, but he could monitor any formal exchanges, including emails related to financial disclosures. And that's when we found the golden ticket. Lisa had been siphoning money from a charity she volunteered for a local women's shelter. Nothing massive, but enough to raise eyebrows. Small expense reimbursements here and there, padded invoices, and duplicate submissions. Mark grinned when he showed me the evidence. Technically, this doesn't fall under the divorce case. But if someone were to forward this to the charity board and local authorities...
I didn't need to hear the rest.
The next morning, I sent the file anonymously to the shelter's director, along with a polite note suggesting a full audit. By the end of the week, Lisa was facing an internal investigation and potential criminal charges. The charity quietly cut ties with her, and her already fragile reputation took another hit. And just like that, the woman who'd tried to destroy my life found herself cornered, alone and out of options. The last I heard, Lisa had moved out of her fancy apartment, defaulted on the lease, and was crashing with a distant cousin. Mark, ever the survivalist, had completely ghosted her. When the final divorce decree arrived, granting me everything I'd fought for, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Lisa had played her last card. And she'd lost. The finality of the divorce decree brought an unexpected calm. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of betrayal and conflict pressing down on me. My house, once filled with memories both bitter and sweet, now felt like mine, a fresh slate rather than a battlefield. But Lisa wasn't one to fade quietly into the background. A week after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something told me to pick up. Daniel. The voice was quiet, almost broken. Lisa. I leaned back in my chair, letting silence stretch between us. Say what you need to say, Lisa. This number won't be available to you after today. There was a shaky breath on the other end. I messed up. I lost everything. Mark's gone. The charity filed charges. My credit shot. I can't even get an apartment without a cosigner. I didn't say a word. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I thought I was trading up, but I was just burning bridges. You didn't deserve how I treated you. Please, Daniel. I need help. There it was. The final play, remorse and desperation, the last tools in her arsenal. But I wasn't the man she'd walked over anymore. I appreciate the apology, Lisa, I said calmly. But you made your choices. And I made mine. We're done. Take care of yourself. Before she could reply, I ended the call and blocked the number. Closure. Real, undeniable closure. From that moment, life moved forward. Not in the dramatic rush of revenge or victories, but in quiet, steady progress. I reconnected with friends, traveled for work, and even started dating again. Nothing serious, just reminders that trust and happiness weren't impossible. One evening, as I sat on my back porch watching the sunset, I realized something profound. I wasn't defined by Lisa's betrayal, nor by the revenge that followed. I was defined by how I reclaimed my life afterward. In the end, Lisa's downfall wasn't my victory. My peace was. And that peace? It was priceless.